"Do you see that black girl hurrying toward the customs checkpoint?" Chief Raymond Kessler asked Lieutenant Cole Mercer over the radio. He stood inside the airport observation room and looked down at the international arrivals area through the tinted glass. "I see her," Mercer replied. "Stop her and search her suitcase right in front of the checkpoint." Mercer looked at Kessler. "Do we have a tip?" "We will. Once customs is focused on her, Langston's people will move the blue suitcase through the employee corridor." Mercer looked toward lane 4. A dark blue suitcase with a silver ribbon tied around its handle was sitting beside an airport employee. "What if she objects? She is traveling alone, and nobody here knows who she is," Kessler said. "Create enough attention to pull the customs officers away from their lanes. By the time anyone questions the search, the other suitcase will be gone." Mercer left the observation area and headed toward the checkpoint. Maya Williams was only a few steps from the final customs gate when Mercer moved in front of her. She stopped before the wheels of her black suitcase struck his shoes. She had been traveling for nearly 20 hours, but she remained alert. "Is there a problem?" she asked. "You need to step away from the gate," Mercer said. Maya looked at the badge on his uniform. "Am I being detained, Lieutenant Mercer?" His expression changed slightly when she used his name. "We received information that a passenger matching your description may be carrying illegal drugs." "What description?" "A black woman arriving from Europe with a black suitcase." Maya glanced at the line behind her. Several black women were waiting near the baggage declaration area, and dozens of passengers carried black luggage. "Did the report include a name?" Mercer did not answer. "A flight number?" He remained silent. "An age, a height, or any other identifying feature?" "You are asking a lot of questions for someone who claims she has nothing to hide." "I have not claimed anything," Maya said. "I asked why you stopped me." Mercer stepped closer. "People who cooperate usually get through this much faster." Maya looked past him toward the glass exit. Deputy United States Marshal Elias Grant was waiting on the other side of the controlled area. He could see her, but he could not enter without authorization from customs. Maya checked the clock above the gate. She had less than an hour to deliver the certified federal order secured inside her suitcase. "I have completed passport control and answered the customs officer's questions," she said. "Are you ordering an additional customs inspection, or are you conducting a criminal search?" Mercer looked toward a canine officer standing near the inspection tables. "Bring the dog over." The officer approached with a German Shepherd. The dog walked around Maya's suitcase and continued past it without stopping. The handler tightened the leash and moved 2 fingers beside his leg. The dog sat. Mercer pointed at the suitcase. The dog alerted to narcotics. Maya looked directly at the handler. "Did the dog alert on its own, or did you signal for it to sit?" The handler looked toward Mercer instead of answering. A Customs and Border Protection officer approached. "We can move the passenger to secondary inspection if you have a valid alert." "No," Mercer said. "We will search her here." The customs officer looked at the crowded checkpoint. "This area needs to remain clear. It will only take a few minutes." Maya understood that Mercer wanted the search to happen in public. The inspection table stood directly in front of the final gate. A confrontation there would stop the passenger line and pull officers from the nearby lanes. She looked toward lane 4. The dark blue suitcase with the silver ribbon was still beside the restricted employee door. The airport worker holding it was watching Mercer and waiting. Mercer pointed to the metal table. "Set your bag down and place your hands where I can see them." Maya did not move immediately. "I will comply with a lawful customs inspection," she said. "I do not consent to a criminal search based on a description limited to my race and the color of my suitcase." Mercer took the handle from her hand. "Your consent is not required." He dragged the suitcase to the inspection table and opened the zipper. Instead of examining the compartments in order, he turned the suitcase over and shook its contents onto the surface. Clothing, medication, toiletries, work notes, and personal items fell across the table. A pair of shoes Maya had bought for her mother dropped onto the floor. A bottle of prescription medicine rolled beneath a nearby chair. An older passenger bent down to retrieve it. "Step back," another officer ordered. The man raised his hands and returned to the line. Mercer opened Maya's toiletry bag and emptied it. He removed the caps from several containers, pressed the sides of a lotion bottle, and opened the boxes containing her medication. Passengers stopped to watch. Several raised their phones. A small photograph fell beside Mercer's hand. It showed Maya as a child standing beside her father in front of his delivery truck. Mercer pushed it aside. "Drug couriers often dress professionally," he said loudly. "Some of them learn legal language, so they can make a routine search look improper." Maya kept her hands visible. "A routine search would have a documented basis," she said. "What time did you receive this tip?" Mercer ignored the question. "What identifying information did the caller provide?" "I told you to remain quiet. You told the people around us that I may be carrying drugs. I am asking you to state the basis for that accusation." More passengers turned toward them. 2 customs officers left their assigned lanes and moved closer to the table. A supervisor came from the declaration area. Mercer glanced at the growing crowd, then pressed the button on his radio. "All units, maintain the perimeter." Leah Bennett stood several feet away. The message she heard through her earpiece was different. Kessler's voice came through the private channel. "Have the customs officers moved?" Mercer lowered his head toward his shoulder microphone. "They are watching her. Move the blue suitcase now." Leah looked toward lane 4. The airport employee placed a security card against the reader beside the restricted door. The lock released, and he began pushing the blue suitcase into the employee corridor. Mercer turned toward the officers around him. "Turn off your body cameras. We are handling private passenger property." The officers reached for their equipment. Leah placed her fingers over the indicator light on her camera but did not stop the recording. Maya saw the blue suitcase, moving in the reflection of the glass wall behind Mercer. "Why is that suitcase entering a restricted corridor without being inspected?" she asked. Mercer immediately stepped between Maya and lane 4. "Focus on your own luggage. That suitcase did not pass through the scanner. You do not know what you saw. I saw 2 customs officers leave their lanes after you began searching me. I saw an employee open a restricted door, and I saw an uninspected suitcase move through it." Mercer's face tightened. "You are in no position to question airport security procedures." Maya looked at the clock, then at the employee door as it closed behind the blue suitcase. "The luggage you should be concerned about is leaving the customs area," she said. Mercer turned back to the table and noticed the locked black document case lying beneath Maya's clothing. He reached for it. Maya's voice became firmer. "Do not open that case." Mercer picked up the black document case and examined the lock. "It is sealed federal material," Maya said. "You have been warned not to open it." Mercer turned the case in his hands. "You told me the same thing about the rest of your luggage." "No. I told you that I did not consent to an unsupported criminal search. This is different. The contents of that case are protected by a federal court order." Several passengers continued recording. The customs supervisor who had approached the table looked at Mercer. "Lieutenant, we should stop until we confirm what she is telling us." Mercer did not answer him. He looked at Maya's travel clothes, her open medication containers, and the personal items spread across the inspection table. He had already announced to the crowd that she might be carrying drugs. Stopping now would require him to admit that he had no evidence. He inserted the edge of a key beneath the clasp. Maya spoke clearly so the nearby cameras could record her words. "My name is Maya Williams. The time is 11:26 in the evening. I do not consent to this search, and I am formally warning Lieutenant Cole Mercer that he is attempting to break a federal seal." Mercer forced the key upward. The clasp opened with a sharp sound, leaving a deep scratch across the raised seal on the case. He lifted the cover. There were no drugs inside. The first document was printed on heavy paper and carried the seal of the United States District Court for the District of Maryland. At the top, in large capital letters, were the words, "Emergency Federal Preservation and Seizure Order." Mercer stopped moving. Maya watched his eyes travel down the first page. The order required the immediate preservation of security footage, employee access records, canine deployment logs, baggage routing information, vehicle records, and internal radio communications connected to the Hawthorne Airport Police Department. Several names appeared on the page: Chief Raymond Kessler, Lieutenant Cole Mercer, Langston Global Logistics. Mercer looked at Maya, then back at the document. Beneath the order was a Department of Justice identification card bearing Maya's photograph and full name. It identified her as an attorney assigned to a federal task force investigating public corruption and international smuggling. If you feel for Maya after watching her remain calm while being falsely accused, publicly humiliated, and targeted because of her race, please give this video a like. Maya did not lose her dignity, even when the officers treated her as though she had no voice. And tell us in the comments where you are watching from, because someone near you may be watching this story with you right now. The customs supervisor leaned closer but did not touch the case. Lieutenant, put the document down. Mercer's face had lost its earlier confidence. There appears to have been a misunderstanding. Maya did not raise her voice. Why did this become a misunderstanding? Only after you read my title. We received information about narcotics. What time did you receive it? Mercer looked toward his radio. Maya continued. What time was the report entered into the system? Who provided it? What details connected that report to me? This is not the place to discuss an active investigation. You made it the place when you accused me in front of these passengers and emptied my belongings onto this table. Mercer closed the document case, but Maya held out her hand. Do not move it again. He hesitated. The case and everything on this table are now part of a documented incident involving people named in that order, Maya said. Nothing should be removed, altered, or returned until the scene is recorded. One of the customs officers stepped back toward his station and called for a federal supervisor. Mercer pressed his radio button. Chief, we have a problem. Kessler did not respond on the main channel. Leah Bennett heard a brief burst of static in her earpiece, followed by Kessler's voice on the private frequency. Get the order away from her. Leah looked toward the observation room. The tinted window was now empty. Mercer reached for Maya's federal identification card. Leah spoke before he could take it. Lieutenant, the customs supervisor told you to stop. Mercer turned toward her. Stay out of this. My camera is recording, Leah said. Mercer looked at the device on her chest. The indicator light appeared dark. You were ordered to turn that off. Leah did not answer. At the far side of the glass gate, Elias Grant had already shown his credentials to the customs officers. A supervisor unlocked the access point and allowed him into the controlled area with 2 federal security officers. Elias walked directly toward Maya. He looked at the contents of her suitcase on the table, then at the open document case in Mercer's hands. Set it down, Elias said. Mercer placed the case on the table. Elias checked Maya first. Are you injured? No. Did they find anything illegal? They found the order they were trying to keep from reaching you. Mercer objected. Nobody was trying to stop a federal order. We were responding to a narcotics alert. Maya pointed toward the restricted employee corridor. A dark blue suitcase with a silver ribbon passed through that door while this search was taking place. It was not scanned, and no customs officer inspected it. Elias turned to the customs supervisor. Lock every employee exit connected to lane 4. Preserve all access card records from the last hour. The supervisor began issuing instructions over his radio. Maya continued. Secure the camera feeds before anyone can overwrite them. We also need the K9 deployment log, the original time of the alleged tip, all radio traffic, and the location records for vehicles operated by Langston Global Logistics. Mercer stepped forward. You cannot take control of airport operations based on something she thinks she saw in a reflection. Maya looked at him. 2 customs officers left their lanes after you began the search. An employee opened a restricted door. A suitcase crossed without inspection. Your radio traffic will show whether those events were connected. Elias asked the customs supervisor to contact the local Office of Homeland Security Investigations and the United States Attorney's Office. A federal security officer photographed the inspection table before anyone moved Maya's belongings. He documented the open medication, the damaged gift box, the photograph of Maya's father, and the scratch across the seal. Maya picked up nothing. A customs agent checked the employee access system. The door at lane 4 opened at 11:23. The badge belongs to a Langston contract worker. Where did the suitcase go? Elias asked. The agent reviewed the routing screen. It was loaded onto a service cart, transferred to the South Logistics exit, and placed on a Langston vehicle. Is the vehicle still on airport property? The agent entered another command. waited, and shook his head. It cleared the service gate 6 minutes ago. Mercer looked toward the observation room, but Kessler was no longer there. Maya turned to Elias. They did not stop me because they believed the drugs were in my suitcase. They stopped me so nobody would inspect the one leaving through that corridor. Elias looked at the federal order, then at the officers standing around the table. From this moment forward, nobody connected to this search leaves the area, deletes a recording, or changes a report without federal review. Mercer opened his mouth to object. Maya spoke before he could. You were not searching for evidence in my luggage, Lieutenant. You were creating cover for evidence to leave the airport. Elias assigned one federal officer to the inspection table and another to the employee corridor. He asked the customs supervisor to identify every person who had left an assigned position during the search. The supervisor began checking the duty roster while Maya stood beside the table with her hands lowered. No one had returned her belongings. Her medication remained open. Her clothes were mixed together, and the photograph of her father rested beside the damaged document case. A few passengers continued recording from a distance. Others had begun moving toward the exit after customs officers reopened 2 lanes. Mercer stood near the table without speaking. He had stopped looking at Maya and was watching the entrances to the controlled area. Several minutes later, Chief Raymond Kessler entered through a staff door with 2 senior airport police officers behind him. His pace was measured, and his expression suggested he had only just learned what had happened. Deputy Grant, Kessler said, I was informed there has been a serious misunderstanding involving one of my officers. Elias did not offer his hand. Your lieutenant opened sealed federal material while an uninspected suitcase passed through an employee corridor. Kessler looked at Mercer. Is that accurate? We had a narcotics alert, Mercer said. The passenger refused to cooperate, and the situation escalated. Maya turned toward him. I answered the customs questions, stated that I did not consent to an unsupported criminal search, and warned you not to break the federal seal. Kessler faced Maya and softened his voice. Miss Williams, I want to apologize for the way this was handled. We can move you to a private office, return your property, and take a formal complaint. I am not leaving this area until the records connected to the search are secured. I understand that you are upset. This is not about whether I am upset, Maya replied. A suitcase passed through lane 4 while your officers held the customs staff here. Your lieutenant opened an order naming both of you. That requires evidence preservation, not a private apology. Kessler looked at the passengers who were still filming. Of course, we will cooperate fully. He turned to one of the officers behind him. Make sure every body camera recording is uploaded immediately. Leah watched him closely. His public instruction was different from the message that came through her private earpiece moments later. Power down the unit cameras before synchronization. 2 officers moved their hands toward their equipment. Leah kept hers running. Elias noticed the movement. Nobody turns off a camera. Kessler gave him a concerned look. We have privacy rules involving international passengers. Those rules do not allow officers to erase evidence after a disputed search. I said upload the recordings. And I heard at least 2 devices shut down, Elias replied. They stay in place until federal technicians copy them. Kessler did not argue further. He looked toward Mercer. Lieutenant, surrender your radio and body camera. Mercer removed both devices and handed them to a federal officer. His movements were controlled, but his hands were unsteady. A customs technology specialist arrived with a laptop. Elias directed him to secure the camera footage covering lane 4, the inspection table, the employee corridor, and the South Logistics exit. The specialist logged into the system, entered a time range, and waited. The lobby cameras are available, he said. The lane 4 feed has a gap. How long? Elias asked. 7 minutes. From 11:21 to 11:28. Maya checked the clock and then looked at the specialist. The employee door opened at 11:23. That falls inside the missing period. Kessler stepped closer to the screen. The system has occasional buffering problems. Maintenance can explain it. The specialist opened another record. This was not buffering. The footage was manually removed from the active server. By whom? Elias asked. The account is listed as Airport Security Administration. Kessler shook his head. Several supervisors have access to that account. Maya looked at him. Then preserve the access history. Before it disappears too. The specialist began copying the available records to an external federal drive. Another officer approached Elias with an update. The alleged narcotics tip is now in the dispatch system. Now? Maya asked. The officer checked the entry. It is stamped 11:25. Mercer had stopped Maya at 11:16. Elias looked at him. You began the detention 9 minutes before the tip was entered. The call may have reached us before dispatch completed the record, Mercer said. What number did it come from? I do not know. It was anonymous. Who notified you? Mercer glanced at Kessler. Kessler answered for him. Our officers receive information through several channels. We will provide the communication records. Maya looked at Leah. The younger officer had remained silent, but she was watching Kessler rather than Mercer. Elias ordered the preservation of every private and department radio channel used during the previous hour. Kessler objected. That request could expose unrelated security information. The order in the case already authorizes preservation, Maya said. The court can determine what is relevant. Your department does not get to decide what disappears before review. Kessler's expression changed for only a moment. A federal photographer documented the inspection table from several angles. Once the photographs were complete, Elias allowed Maya to collect her property. She picked up her father's photograph first. One corner had been bent. She smoothed it with her thumb before placing it inside her handbag. The shoes she had bought for her mother were stained from the wet floor. Maya returned them to their box without commenting. Elias helped close the suitcase, but the items no longer fit as they had before. Maya removed several documents and carried them separately. Her phone showed 3 missed calls from her mother. The latest message read, "Are you through customs yet?" Maya typed, "I'm safe. I'll be home late." She did not include any other details. Assistant United States Attorney Elena Brooks arrived shortly before midnight. She was a senior prosecutor with more than 20 years of experience and had been assigned to supervise the corruption investigation. Elena reviewed the damaged federal case, the dispatch time, and the preliminary access records. Then she asked Maya to join her in a small customs office away from Kessler and Mercer. You understand what happens now, Elena said. Maya nodded. I became a victim and a witness. That means you cannot direct the investigation into the people involved in the search. I agree. Elena studied her. You agreed quickly. Because they will claim retaliation if I remain involved. I will not give them that argument. I still need a complete statement from you, and we may need you to testify. I can provide a written statement tonight. That is not what I asked. Maya looked through the office window at the inspection table. Mercer stood beside a federal officer. Kessler was speaking quietly with his attorney by phone. I carried the order here, Maya said. I delivered it. The case should now be handled by people who were not searched by its subjects. Eliminating a conflict does not eliminate what you witnessed. I understand. Will you testify if the court requires it? Maya hesitated. I would prefer not to become the public center of this case. Elena closed the file in front of her. That may no longer be your choice. Maya left the office after midnight, carrying the damaged case beneath one arm. Before she reached the exit, Elias told her that the blue suitcase had left airport property and that the Langston vehicle had stopped transmitting its location. Maya looked back at the customs gate, where her belongings had been emptied in front of strangers. She believed the investigation could continue without her. By the following morning, Ruth Carter would show her why that was no longer possible. Maya returned to her mother's house shortly before 2 in the morning. Denise Williams had left the porch light on and kept the chicken casserole warm in the oven, even though Maya had texted that she would be late. Denise opened the front door before Maya reached for her key. You look exhausted, she said. I'm all right. Denise looked at the damaged document case under Maya's arm, and the suitcase with its zipper partly open. That is not what all right looks like. Maya entered the house and set the suitcase beside the stairs. The familiar smell of baked chicken, onions, and buttered biscuits filled the kitchen. Denise had placed a plate on the table and covered it with foil. You should eat, Denise said. I'm not hungry. You have been traveling all day. Sit down. Maya did not argue. She removed her coat and sat at the kitchen table while Denise heated the food. The house was quiet except for the refrigerator and the sound of the microwave. Denise placed the plate in front of her, then sat across from her. What happened at the airport? Maya had planned to wait until morning, but her mother was already looking at the damaged lock and the marks on the suitcase. The airport police stopped me before customs, Maya said. They said they had a report that I was carrying drugs. Denise's face remained still. Did they search you? They emptied the suitcase in front of everyone. Did they hurt you? No. Denise nodded once. Did they find anything? They found the federal order. Maya explained the blue suitcase, the missing camera footage, the false alert from the dog, and the names listed in the order. She kept her voice controlled and described the events in sequence, as if she were preparing a statement. Denise listened without interrupting. When Maya finished, her mother asked, "Why did they choose you?" They claimed I matched a description. That is not what I asked. Maya looked down at the plate. I don't know yet. Denise reached across the table and placed her hand over Maya's. You do know. You just do not have all the proof yet. Maya ate several bites because her mother was watching, then took the suitcase upstairs. She found the shoes she had bought for Denise and cleaned the water from the box with a towel. The photograph of her father had a bent corner. Maya placed it on the dresser and tried to smooth it flat. She slept for less than 3 hours. At 7:30, she heard voices in the kitchen. When she went downstairs, Ruth Carter was sitting at the table with a black thermos beside her and a thick file box near her feet. Ruth had worked for Customs and Border Protection for more than 30 years before retiring. She had supervised inspections at several East Coast ports and had trained Maya during a federal legal fellowship. She rarely visited without calling first. Denise placed eggs, toast, and coffee on the table. You both need breakfast before you start talking about federal investigations, she said. Ruth thanked her and waited until Denise left the room. I heard what happened, Ruth said. Maya poured coffee. That was fast. Airport people talk. Retired airport people listen. Elena Brooks has the investigation now. I know. I gave my statement, and I agreed not to participate further. Ruth opened the file box. Then you should see what happened before you make that decision permanent. She placed several folders on the table. Each folder contained the name of a woman, a date, a flight number, and an airport police report. Maya opened the first file. Patricia Ellis was a 54-year-old nurse who had returned from Jamaica after caring for her mother. Officers searched her luggage in public after a dog alert. No drugs were found. The second file belonged to Angela Reed, a high school teacher returning from London. Officers opened gifts she had purchased for her grandchildren and damaged several items. No drugs were found. The third woman was a military veteran. The fourth was a widow traveling after her husband's funeral. The fifth was a postal employee. The sixth was a college student. Maya continued through the files. How many? She asked. 16 that I could verify. All at Hawthorne. All near the same customs exit. Maya looked at the dates. Mercer was on duty in most of these. Every one that involved a public search. Maya checked the results. No narcotics in 15 cases. The remaining case involved prescription medication. The charge was dismissed because the traveler had valid documents. Maya reviewed the times and locations. Why were these women kept near the main gate instead of taken to secondary inspection? That is the question. Ruth removed a printed diagram of the customs area and placed it on the table. She marked the inspection point where Maya had been stopped, then marked Lane 4 and the restricted employee corridor. They had to search you directly in front of the gate, Ruth said. A public confrontation there blocks passenger traffic, draws supervisors away from their stations, and creates a reason for officers to move toward one location. Maya studied the diagram. You think the other searches were distractions too? I think the women were never the real targets. Ruth handed her a second set of records. They showed vehicle activity connected to Langston Global Logistics. On each date when one of the women had been searched, a Langston service vehicle left the airport within minutes. Several baggage records contained missing scans or incomplete employee names. Maya checked the times again. This cannot be a coincidence. No, Ruth said. It is a method. Maya leaned back. Ruth opened another folder. Inside was a photograph of Patricia Ellis standing beside an airport inspection table while officers searched her bags. Several passengers were recording. She asked the same questions you asked, Ruth said. She wanted to know why she had been stopped and what connected her to the report. They wrote that she was argumentative. What happened afterward? She missed her connecting flight. Her medication was left open. The airport denied her complaint because the officers described the search as a good faith response to a canine alert. Maya closed the folder. Ruth said, "Justice is not fair if it only wakes up when the person being harmed has enough power to frighten the entire room." Maya looked at the damaged federal case on the counter. They reacted because of the seal. They reacted because the seal created consequences. Ruth replied, "These women had the same rights you had. The difference was that no one in the room was afraid of violating theirs." Maya stood and walked to the window. She could see Denise in the backyard filling a bird feeder. "I cannot direct the investigation. I am not asking you to. I cannot make charging decisions or interview the officers as part of the prosecution team." "Then do not." Maya turned toward Ruth. "What are you asking? Do not let them reduce this to one officer making one bad decision. Tell Elena what you saw. Help her understand the pattern. Testify when the court asks." Maya looked at the 16 files on the kitchen table. She had wanted to believe the incident ended when the federal team took control of the airport records. The folders showed that the same conduct had continued for years because each woman had been treated as an isolated complaint. Denise returned to the kitchen and saw the files. "Are those other women?" Maya nodded. Denise looked at her daughter. "Then this was never only about you." Maya returned to the table and collected the folders in date order. "I will call Elena," she said. "I will remain outside the investigation, but I will provide a full statement, review the sequence I witnessed, and testify if the court requires it." Ruth closed her thermos. "That is enough for today." Maya picked up the first folder again. The name Patricia Ellis was printed across the top. For the first time since leaving the airport, Maya understood that the federal seal had not ended the search. It had exposed how many searches had happened before hers, without anyone being required to answer for them. Maya called Elena Brooks shortly after Ruth left the house. By noon, Elena had assembled a small, independent team at the United States Attorney's Office in Baltimore. Maya attended only to provide her account and explain what she had observed at the customs gate. Elena made the limits clear before the meeting began. "You are here as a witness," she said. "You may answer questions about the incident and identify details you personally observed. You will not direct interviews, recommend charges, or review protected evidence unless it relates directly to your testimony." "I understand." "Good. I want the defense to have no basis for claiming this investigation became personal." Maya placed Ruth's folders on the conference table. "It was personal long before they stopped me. These women show that." Elena opened the first file and read for several minutes before passing it to an investigator. The preliminary technical report from Hawthorne Airport arrived that afternoon. It confirmed several problems that could not be explained as routine errors. The anonymous narcotics tip concerning Maya had been entered into the dispatch system at 11:25. Mercer had stopped her at 11:16. The Lane 4 camera feed was missing from 11:21 until 11:28. The employee door used by the Langston contractor had opened at 11:23. The K-9 deployment record had been edited after midnight. The original entry listed the dog's response as inconclusive. The revised entry described a positive narcotics alert. The blue suitcase had been marked as inspected, but the record did not include the name or identification number of any customs employee. There was also no scanner image connected to the baggage tag. A Langston Global Logistics vehicle had left the south service gate minutes after the suitcase entered the restricted corridor. Its tracking system stopped transmitting shortly after it left airport property. Elena placed the reports in order. "One mistake might be poor procedure," she said. "Two might be incompetence. This many changes within the same hour suggest coordination." A Homeland Security investigator looked at Maya. "Did Mercer check his radio before he approached you?" "No. He came directly toward me." "Did anyone mention a tip before the dog arrived?" "Only Mercer." "Did the dog show any interest in the suitcase before the handler signaled?" "No." The investigator noted her answer. Kessler issued a public statement that evening. He said the department was cooperating fully and that early reports of missing evidence were misleading. According to him, the airport's camera system had experienced a temporary technical failure, while the dispatch delay resulted from a busy international arrival period. He described Mercer as an experienced officer responding to information available at the time. Victor Langston appeared on a local television program later that night. He spoke from his company headquarters with an American flag and a framed photograph of airport police officers behind him. "Our employees move thousands of bags and cargo containers every week," he said. "It is irresponsible to connect a routine service vehicle to criminal activity without evidence." The interviewer asked about Maya. Langston shook his head. "I regret that any traveler felt embarrassed, but national security procedures can be uncomfortable. From what I understand, she refused to cooperate and used her government position to pressure officers who were doing their jobs." The program then played an edited video recorded by a passenger. It began when Maya warned Mercer not to open the document case. It did not show the dog handler's signal, Mercer overturning the suitcase, or the blue bag entering the employee corridor. The following morning, Ruth picked Maya up outside her mother's house in an older Buick sedan. She drove them toward the airport but exited the highway several miles before the terminal. "Where are we going?" Maya asked. "To meet someone who stopped trusting government offices a long time ago." Ruth parked outside a small diner near a truck stop. Inside, several older customers sat at the counter drinking coffee and reading local newspapers. Thomas Green occupied a booth near the rear exit. He wore a faded Baltimore Orioles cap and a work jacket with the name of a former baggage contractor stitched above the pocket. His coffee was untouched. Ruth introduced them. Thomas looked at Maya but did not offer his hand. "I saw you on television," he said. "Then you saw an incomplete version. That is usually the version they prefer." Maya sat across from him. Ruth took the seat beside her. Thomas had worked at Hawthorne for almost 30 years. He began when employees still attached paper routing tags by hand and used basic radios to coordinate baggage transfers. He knew which doors were supposed to remain locked, which vehicles were authorized to enter secure areas, and how every checked bag should appear in the routing system. 3 years earlier, he noticed luggage marked with narrow silver ribbons being removed from the standard inspection process. "At first, I thought it was executive baggage or diplomatic handling," he said. "Then I saw one of the bags enter through an international cargo lane and leave on a Langston truck without a scan." "Did you report it?" Maya asked. 3 times. "What happened after the 3rd report?" Thomas looked toward the front counter before answering. "Airport police searched my locker. They found a missing tablet from a passenger claim." "Was it yours?" "I had never seen it before." His security badge was revoked that afternoon. He was suspended and later dismissed for theft. The accusation was never prosecuted, but the airport refused to restore his position. "I was 6 months away from qualifying for the full retirement benefit," he said. "They knew exactly when to remove me." "Did your union challenge the dismissal?" Maya asked. "They tried, but the airport said the security finding was confidential. Without access to the reports, the union could not prove the tablet had been planted." Thomas had kept copies of baggage routing records, access times, and vehicle assignments. He had also compared them with public incident reports involving narcotics searches near the customs gate. "How many matching dates did you find?" Maya asked. "More than a dozen. Do you still have the records?" Thomas studied her carefully. "My son works at Hawthorne. If I give you anything, and they find out, he could lose his badge before his next shift. We can request protection," Maya said. "Can you guarantee it?" "No." Thomas looked surprised by the answer. Maya continued. "I can promise that Elena Brooks will take the threat seriously. I can also promise that I will not ask you to risk your family based on guarantees I cannot make." Ruth remained silent. Thomas looked down at his coffee. "When I lost the job, I could handle the missing paycheck," he said. "I could find other work. What I could not handle was my granddaughter asking whether I had stolen from passengers. She had seen my name online." Maya understood why he had kept the records. He wanted more than compensation. He wanted proof that the accusation had been used to silence him. "You have already paid once for reporting what you saw," she said. I will not ask you to pay again until there is a plan to protect your family. Thomas did not give her the records. When the meeting ended, he paid for his coffee and walked toward the door. Before leaving, he returned to the booth, took the receipt from the table, and wrote several numbers on the back. He handed it to Maya. These are shift codes, he said. Start with them before someone deletes the rest. The shift codes Thomas provided covered 16 nights over the previous 2 years. Elena obtained the corresponding duty rosters, customs incident reports, canine records, employee access logs, and vehicle schedules through the preservation order. By the next afternoon, the independent team had arranged the records across a long conference table. Maya remained at one end of the room with a copy of her witness statement. She was not permitted to direct the investigation, but Elena allowed her to explain the customs layout and identify details connected to the night she had been stopped. An investigator pointed to the first shift code. Mercer supervised the narcotics unit on this date. A 54-year-old black nurse was searched near the final customs gate at 11:12. No illegal substances were found. Another investigator checked the vehicle records. A Langston service truck left the south gate at 11:18. They reviewed the next date. A black high school teacher had been detained after a canine alert. Officers opened her luggage in front of other passengers and held her for 40 minutes. No narcotics were found. A Langston vehicle departed 7 minutes after the search began. The same pattern appeared again with the military veteran, the postal worker, the widow, and several other travelers in Ruth's files. Each public search occurred near the final customs gate. Each one drew officers away from nearby lanes. Each one coincided with the movement of baggage connected to Langston Global Logistics. The records also showed that the same small group of officers appeared repeatedly. Mercer supervised most of the searches. The same 2 canine handlers were assigned to 12 of the 16 shifts. Kessler accessed the airport security system before or shortly after every incident. Elena reviewed the findings in silence. This is no longer a collection of bad searches, she said. It is an operating procedure. A financial investigator placed another set of documents on the table. Mercer's unit received performance bonuses after several of these shifts. The money came through the Hawthorne Public Safety Foundation. Who funds it? Maya asked. Langston Global Logistics is the largest private donor. Elena looked at Maya. Remember your role. I am asking because the officers called these searches successful, even when they found nothing. The investigator answered. The bonus reports describe increased interdiction activity. They do not require an arrest or seizure. So they were rewarded for creating the appearance of enforcement, Maya said. Elena made a note. That is a question for the financial records, not a conclusion yet. At Hawthorne Airport, Leah Bennett sat alone inside a small equipment room and watched the recording from Maya's search for the 3rd time. Kessler's voice was clear on the private radio channel. He had identified Maya before Mercer approached her. He had ordered the search before any tip entered the dispatch system. He had also directed Mercer to hold customs at the gate until the blue suitcase passed through the employee corridor. Leah paused the recording when Kessler said that nobody at the airport knew who Maya was. She had heard senior officers make similar comments before. They chose passengers who traveled alone, who did not speak English confidently, or who appeared unlikely to file complaints. Leah had noticed the pattern but had never asked why the searches occurred at the same location. She had told herself that Mercer and Kessler had access to intelligence she was not authorized to see. The recording proved otherwise. Leah copied the file onto an encrypted storage device and placed it inside her coat pocket. She sent Maya a message asking to meet that evening at a parking garage near downtown Baltimore. Maya and Elena arranged for federal protection to remain nearby without entering the meeting area. Leah never arrived. The following morning, Mercer asked her to join him in the airport break room. He poured coffee into a paper cup and closed the door. You missed roll call yesterday, he said. My mother had a medical appointment. You should have informed me. I sent a message to the duty sergeant. Mercer took a seat across from her. Your brother is applying to the police academy this year, isn't he? Leah kept her expression neutral. Yes. I remember how difficult that process can be. Background investigators look at the entire family. What does my brother have to do with my attendance? Nothing. As long as everyone in the family understands responsibility. Leah did not answer. Mercer continued. This department takes care of its own. Officers who remain loyal usually find that doors open for them. Officers who create unnecessary problems sometimes affect people around them. That sounds like a threat. It is advice. Leah stood. Mercer looked at the camera attached to her uniform. You followed the order to turn that off during the Williams search, correct? Yes. The answer was technically false. She had disabled the visible indicator but left the recording active. Mercer studied her for several seconds. Good. There is enough confusion without officers keeping private copies of incomplete incidents. Leah left the room without touching the coffee. That afternoon, Maya noticed a black sport utility vehicle behind her as she drove from the federal building to her mother's house. It stayed 2 cars back through several turns and continued following when she left the main road. Maya called Elias and read the license plate aloud. Do not drive home, he said. Go to the nearest police station or federal building. I am 5 minutes from the United States Attorney's office. Go there. Keep me on the line. The vehicle turned away before Maya reached the secured entrance. Later that evening, Ruth received a call from an unlisted number. No one spoke, but she could hear airport announcements in the background before the caller disconnected. Thomas's house was entered the same night. The back door was damaged, drawers were opened, and papers were spread across the floor. Nothing valuable was taken. Thomas called Maya after the police left. They were looking for the records, he said. Did they find them? No. Your family needs protection now. I know. Will you speak with Elena? Thomas remained silent. Mr. Green, they already know you kept something. My son still has to walk into that airport tomorrow morning. Elena can arrange temporary protection and request that his badge status be monitored by federal investigators. Can she stop Kessler from finding another reason to fire him? No, Maya said. But she can make sure Kessler understands that every action involving your family will be reviewed. Thomas agreed to meet Elena the next day, although he still refused to disclose where the records were stored. Kessler responded to the growing federal inquiry by suspending Mercer with pay. At a press conference, he described the decision as proof that the department held its officers accountable. After the cameras were gone, he called Mercer into his office. You will maintain that the tip came through an unofficial source before the dispatch entry, Kessler said. And if they prove otherwise? They will not. What about Bennett? Kessler looked through the glass wall toward the operations floor. She needs to remember who gave her a career. That night, Leah scheduled a second meeting with Maya and canceled it 20 minutes before the agreed time. Maya called Ruth from her car. She is frightened. She has reason to be, Ruth replied. She may be the only person who recorded Kessler's order. Then do not mistake fear for refusal. Give her room to decide what kind of officer she wants to be. Maya looked at the 16 shift codes on the passenger seat. Each represented a woman who had been searched, a customs lane left unattended, and a Langston vehicle allowed to leave. Loyalty is the reason everyone keeps protecting him, Maya said. No, Ruth answered. Fear is the reason. They call it loyalty because that sounds more honorable. She paused before adding, loyalty stops being a virtue when it requires someone to bury the truth for a person with more power. 2 days passed without another message from Leah. Shortly before midnight on the third night, Maya's phone displayed a new text. St. Anne's Hospital, 5th floor garage, midnight. Maya arrived at St. Anne's Hospital shortly before midnight and parked on the 5th floor of the garage. Elias had arranged for 2 federal officers to remain 1 level below, close enough to respond but far enough away that Leah would not feel surrounded. The hospital garage was mostly quiet. A few employees walked toward the elevator after finishing late shifts, and an ambulance entered the emergency entrance below. Maya waited beside her car with her phone in her coat pocket. At 12 minutes past midnight, Leah stepped out of the stairwell. She was not wearing her uniform. She had on jeans, a dark jacket, and running shoes. Her hair was pulled back, and she carried a small purse against her side. My mother is receiving treatment upstairs, Leah said. If anyone checked my location, this would look like a family visit. How is she? She had surgery 2 days ago. She is stable. Maya nodded toward the passenger side of her car. We can sit inside if you prefer. Leah remained where she was. I cannot stay long. She removed a small encrypted drive from her purse and held it out. This is a copy from my body camera. Maya did not take it immediately. Does Elena know you are here? No. She needs to know before anyone handles evidence. I did not want prosecutors showing up with agents. I needed to speak to you first. Maya looked at the drive. Why me? Because you were there, and because I stood beside Mercer while he searched your suitcase. Leah lowered her hand. I should have stopped him. Could you have stopped the search by yourself? I could have objected. I could have refused to turn off my camera. I could have called a customs supervisor. Before the suitcase went through the door. You did keep the camera running. That does not excuse the other times. Maya waited. Leah looked toward the elevator before continuing. There were searches before yours. I saw the same unit stop women near the customs gate. Most of them were black. Some were immigrants who did not understand what the officers were saying. Mercer always said there was intelligence we could not see. And you believed him? At first. Later, I noticed that the searches happened near the same lanes and during the same shifts. I told myself there had to be a reason. That was easier than asking. Yes, Leah's answer was direct. My father was a patrol officer for 27 years. He taught me that officers protect each other because they depend on each other. Mercer used the same language. He called the unit a family and said people who questioned the family could not be trusted. What changed that night? I heard Kessler choose you before Mercer approached you. There was no tip. There was no investigation. He saw you walking toward the gate and decided you would be useful. Maya took the drive but kept it visible between them. What exactly did the camera record? The private radio channel, the search, the order to move the blue suitcase, and Kessler asking whether customs had left lane 4. It also recorded Mercer ordering us to turn off our cameras. Does this contain the original file? It contains a direct copy. The original should still exist in the department system, but I do not know how long it will remain there. Was it backed up outside the department? Leah nodded. The manufacturer operates a remote evidence server. The department can request deletion, but the vendor should retain an audit record. Maya called Elena on the secure line. Elena answered after the second ring. I am with Leah Bennett at St. Anne's Hospital, Maya said. She has brought a copy of her body camera recording. She says the original may have an external vendor backup. Do not open the file, Elena replied. Place the drive in an evidence envelope. I am sending an agent and a digital technician. Ask Officer Bennett to remain if she can. Maya ended the call. Leah looked toward the stairwell. I cannot be seen with federal agents. Elena can arrange a protected interview. My brother's academy application is under review. Mercer already mentioned it. Did he threaten your brother directly? He said family reputations can close doors. That should be included in your statement. Leah looked at Maya. You make it sound simple. It is not simple. You may lose your position, and people you worked with may refuse to speak to you. Your brother may face questions he did not create. Then why should I do it? Because the consequences of telling the truth do not make the truth less necessary. Leah looked down at the drive. Maya continued. Fear explains why you stayed silent. It does not erase what happened during that silence. You will have to accept both facts. Leah nodded slowly. I know. The federal technician arrived with an agent several minutes later. They sealed the drive, documented the time, and asked Leah to confirm that she had made the copy herself. She agreed to give an initial recorded statement inside an unused consultation room at the hospital. Before they left the garage, Maya asked one final question. Why did Kessler believe the crowd would accept the search? Leah answered without hesitation. Because he knew people would see a young black woman accused of carrying drugs and assume the officers had a reason. He counted on the passengers watching you instead of asking what was happening behind them. The recording was reviewed at the United States Attorney's Office early the next morning. Maya was not permitted inside the evidence room, but Elena allowed her to listen from a separate conference room because the conversation involved Maya's detention and would become part of her testimony. Kessler's voice came through clearly. Do you see that black girl hurrying toward the customs checkpoint? Mercer confirmed that he did. Kessler then ordered him to stop Maya, and the next section recorded Mercer asking whether the customs officers had moved away from lane 4. They are all watching her, he said. Move the blue suitcase now, Kessler replied. No one in the conference room spoke for several seconds after the recording ended. Elena turned to the investigators. This proves the search was planned. It also links the detention directly to the baggage diversion. A Homeland Security investigator added, "It proves racial selection was part of the method." Maya looked at the folders containing the names of the 16 women. Kessler and Mercer had not allowed personal bias to interfere with their work. They had made that bias part of the work. They selected people the public was likely to suspect and used the resulting attention to move contraband through an unguarded corridor. The technician confirmed that the video file matched the device assigned to Leah. He also located evidence of an automatic upload to the camera manufacturer's server. Elena immediately requested an emergency preservation order for the external copy, the account history, and all deletion requests connected to the Hawthorne Airport Police Department. "This cannot depend only on the drive Leah carried out," Elena said. "We need the vendor's original backup and its audit trail." By noon, the manufacturer confirmed that a complete copy still existed. The recording had preserved the truth, but it also created a new question. Kessler had chosen Maya quickly, before anyone inspected her passport or asked about her job. Yet he had ordered Mercer to search her locked document case as soon as it appeared. Investigators returned to the airline access records and found an unauthorized search of the passenger list from Maya's flight. The search had been conducted several hours before landing. The person who accessed the list had entered only one name, M. Williams. The unauthorized search came from a security contractor with access to airline manifests and airport credential systems. The company, Northbridge Aviation Security, provided technical support for employee badges, surveillance equipment, and restricted area access. A financial review showed that Northbridge was partly owned by a holding company connected to Langston Global Logistics. Elena Brooks gathered the investigative team that afternoon. Maya attended by secure video from a separate office because Elena wanted to preserve the limits of her role. A Homeland Security investigator displayed the access record on a screen. "The account searched for M. Williams 3 times, he said. The first search occurred shortly after the Brussels flight departed. The second was made 2 hours before landing, and the third happened after the aircraft reached the gate." "What information could the user see?" Elena asked. "Name, flight number, seat assignment, checked baggage count, and general baggage description." The account also accessed an internal note, stating that the passenger might be carrying legal documents requiring direct delivery. "Did the note identify the agency?" Maya asked. "No. It listed the traveler only as a government employee." The investigator changed the display. "We traced the activity to a terminal inside Northbridge's airport office. The employee logged in at the time was Gavin Holt, a contract security coordinator." "Has he been located?" Elena asked. "His attorney contacted us this morning. Holt says he accessed the file after receiving a request from a senior Langston manager." Maya studied the timing. Kessler knew someone named Williams was coming through customs with documents, but he did not know what that person looked like. "That is our current conclusion," Elena said. "Then when he saw me carrying a black suitcase and moving toward the exit, he decided I might be the person he was looking for." The investigator nodded. "And if you were not, the search still served as cover for the blue suitcase." The plan now made sense in full. Maya had been selected for 2 reasons. Kessler wanted to locate the federal order before it reached Elias, and he needed a public distraction while Langston's shipment passed through the restricted corridor. Her race, age, and the fact that she traveled alone made her useful to him. He believed other passengers would accept the accusation before they questioned the officers. Elena closed the file. "This adds attempted interference with a federal investigation to the possible offenses. It also gives Kessler's attorneys another reason to attack your involvement. They were already going to do that. They will argue that you used the incident to expand an investigation that was originally unrelated to you." The order named their department before they stopped me. "I know. The court will know too. Our responsibility is to remove every avoidable argument." Maya understood what Elena was preparing to say. "You want me completely separated from the evidence review?" "I do. I have already stayed out of interviews and charging discussions." "You have. But your name is now part of the leaked manifest, the detention, the damaged order, and the public narrative. From this point forward, you should not attend team meetings, even as an observer. Maya remained quiet for several seconds. I agree. Elena looked surprised. You do not want to discuss it? There is nothing to discuss. I will not give Kessler a reason to claim the case is retaliation. You will still provide testimony and respond to requests from the prosecution. I understand. After the call, Maya remained in the office and reviewed her original witness statement. She could no longer help the team organize the broader evidence, but she could make sure her own account was exact. She added the time Mercer stepped in front of her, the location of the dog handler, the number of customs officers who left their lanes, and the moment the employee door opened. She also described Kessler's behavior when he arrived. He had apologized before asking what had happened. He had immediately suggested a private room and an internal investigation. His response had not been surprise. It had been damage control. That evening, a local television station aired another report about the case. The anchor described Maya as a 28-year-old Justice Department attorney whose confrontation with airport police had raised questions about professional judgment on both sides. A commentator asked why an experienced federal employee had not simply identified herself. Another suggested Maya might have allowed the search to continue because she understood that it could strengthen the government's case. Denise turned off the television. They keep asking why you did not tell them who you were, she said. They think my title should have protected me. They think everyone gets treated the way they do. Maya sat at the kitchen table with the damaged document case beside her. They also think remaining calm means I planned what happened. Denise placed 2 mugs of tea on the table. People who have never been treated as suspicious for entering a room believe you can solve the problem with the right words. Maya ran one finger over the scratch on the raised seal. If I speak publicly, they will say I am trying the case in the media. If I stay silent, they will say I have no answer. Then do what protects the case. That may damage my reputation. Denise looked at her daughter. Your father spent years with people believing a lie about him because no one cared enough to correct the record. He would tell you that a reputation can be repaired after the truth is established. Evidence cannot be repaired after it is destroyed. Maya knew her mother was right. The next morning, Elena announced that Maya had formally withdrawn from every investigative and advisory function related to the case. She would participate only as a witness. Kessler's attorney immediately issued a statement calling the withdrawal an admission that Maya's involvement had been improper from the beginning. Maya did not respond. At Hawthorne Airport, Kessler read the statement in his office and told Victor Langston that the most dangerous person in the investigation had been removed. Victor was less certain. She still saw the suitcase, he said. One witness saw something in a reflection. She carried the order. The order is now evidence in a search involving her. Her role is compromised. Victor looked toward the runway through the office window. What about the baggage worker? Thomas Green? He kept records? Kessler's expression changed. We searched his house. And did you find them? No. Then Maya Williams is not your immediate problem. Kessler picked up the phone and called Mercer. Find out where Green stored the files, he said. Do it before the federal team protects him. At the same time, Maya received a message from Thomas, asking to meet Elena and discuss witness protection. He had decided to turn over the records. Elena arranged to meet Thomas Green in the basement of New Hope Baptist Church, where he had volunteered for community dinners after losing his airport job. The church was several miles from Hawthorne Airport and had no connection to the investigation, which made it a safer location than a federal office. The meeting was scheduled for 7 in the evening. Elena would bring a witness protection specialist and a digital technician. Thomas agreed to hand over the original storage drive after the government explained how it would protect his son. Maya was not part of the meeting. Since withdrawing from the investigation, she could not attend interviews or handle evidence. She remained at her mother's house and waited for Elena to call if Thomas needed to clarify anything he had previously told her. At 6:30, Thomas left his apartment carrying the drive inside a small envelope. He placed it in the inside pocket of his jacket and drove to the church in his older pickup truck. He arrived 10 minutes early. The main entrance was locked, so he parked near the side door used by volunteers. A light was on inside the basement kitchen, and several folding tables were visible through the narrow windows. Thomas stepped out of the truck and reached for his phone. A man approached from between two parked vehicles. Thomas turned when he heard footsteps, but a second man came from behind him. One of them struck him across the shoulder and pushed him against the truck. "Where are the files?" the first man asked. Thomas tried to reach the side door. The second man pulled him backward and searched his jacket. He found the envelope, removed the drive, and checked the label. "Is this the only copy?" Thomas did not answer. The first man struck him again. Thomas fell beside the truck and covered his head with both arms. The men left in a dark sedan before anyone inside the church heard the disturbance. Elena arrived several minutes later and found Thomas on the pavement. He was conscious, but one eye was swollen. His wrist appeared broken, and blood covered the side of his face. She called emergency services and requested federal agents at the scene. Thomas was taken to St. Anne's Hospital. The church security camera had been turned away from the parking area, and the sedan's license plate was not visible on nearby traffic footage. The storage drive was gone. At almost the same time, a scheduled maintenance process began on Hawthorne Airport's main data server. Several months of employee access logs, vehicle records, and baggage routing information were deleted. Airport technicians later claimed the deletion had been automatic. However, the maintenance process had been activated manually by an administrator account. The Langston truck associated with the blue suitcase was found burning in an industrial area outside Baltimore. The vehicle identification number had been damaged, and the tracking unit had been removed. A warehouse supervisor who had worked the night Maya returned failed to report for his shift. His apartment was empty, and his phone had been disconnected. Ruth received a large envelope at her home. It contained a photograph of her front porch, taken that morning. There was no note. Leah called Elena after learning about Thomas. Her voice was unsteady. "I cannot testify," she said. "Officer Bennett, we can protect you. You could not protect Thomas. We did not know he was being followed. That is the problem. We do not know who they have inside the airport, the police department, or the security contractors. Your recording is already preserved. My attorney says the copy could be challenged if I refuse to authenticate it." "That is correct. Then they can challenge it." Elena kept her voice controlled. "Kessler selected Maya because he believed she was alone and no one would support her. He is using the same fear against you. My mother is still in the hospital, and my brother lives at home. I will not put them in danger." Elena did not threaten her with a subpoena. She told Leah to remain in contact and asked her not to speak with Mercer or Kessler. Leah ended the call without making another promise. Maya learned about the attack from Elias. She drove to St. Anne's after Elena confirmed that she could visit Thomas as a personal contact, not as a member of the prosecution team. Thomas was awake when she entered his room. His wrist had been placed in a cast, and several cuts near his forehead had been closed with stitches. Maya stopped beside the bed. "I should not have encouraged you to come forward." Thomas looked at her with his uninjured eye. "You did not send those men. I knew there was a risk. So did I. They took the drive." Thomas turned his head toward the window. "I carried those records for 3 years. I kept telling myself I was waiting for the right person to trust. You had every reason to be careful. My wife wanted me to destroy them. She was afraid they would come after our son. I told her that if I destroyed the records, the people who framed me would own the only version of what happened." Maya pulled a chair closer to the bed. "They will say the drive never existed. They already said I was a thief. I know what they are capable of saying." Thomas looked at her. "You did not bring me back into this. I have been part of it since the day they removed my name from my employee badge." Elena entered the room several minutes later and explained the damage to the case. Without Thomas's original records, the government could still use the federal data already preserved, but the historical pattern would be harder to prove. Without Leah's testimony, the defense could challenge the body camera file by claiming it had been copied or edited outside official procedures. The missing blue suitcase had never been recovered. No drugs, money, or diamonds had been seized. The main airport video contained a 7-minute gap. Kessler's attorneys could argue that Mercer had conducted an improper search without proving a long-term smuggling conspiracy. Maya listened without interrupting. "What remains?" she asked. "The late dispatch entry, the damaged federal order, the external body camera backup, and partial access records," Elena said. They prove serious misconduct. They may not be enough to establish the full operation. Maya looked at Thomas. He had risked his health and his family's safety to preserve evidence, and the people responsible had taken it before the government could secure it. For the first time since the airport search, Maya questioned whether the federal seal had changed anything beyond her own case. It had forced officials to respond when her belongings were searched, but Thomas had spent years trying to make the same system listen. Maya returned home after midnight. She placed the damaged document case on her desk and set her father's photograph beside it. Her father had once followed every instruction during a roadside search. The officers found nothing, yet the report still described him as suspicious and uncooperative. He had no video, no independent witness, and no record powerful enough to correct the accusation. Maya wondered whether Thomas would face the same result. Her phone rang before she could turn off the light. The caller was Thomas. His voice was weak but clear. "They took the drive," he said. "They did not take the copy I sent where no police officer would think to look." Maya stood. "Where did you send it?" "The Union server. I uploaded everything before they searched my house." "Does anyone else know?" "My old Union representative helped me create the account. He thought I was storing documents for my retirement appeal." Maya called Elena immediately. By morning, federal agents had secured the labor union's server and confirmed that Thomas had uploaded a complete copy of the baggage routing records, access logs, vehicle schedules, and incident comparisons. The attackers had taken the device from his pocket, but they had not taken the evidence. 3 days later, Maya entered the federal courthouse in Baltimore through a side entrance reserved for witnesses. She wore the same gray coat and dark suit she had worn on the night of the airport search. Elena had advised her to choose different clothing, but Maya wanted the court to see the woman Mercer had stopped, not the government attorney described in later news reports. Inside the courtroom, the damaged black document case rested on the evidence table beside her suitcase. The lock had not been repaired. The scratch across the federal seal remained visible. Chief Raymond Kessler sat with his attorneys near the front. Victor Langston occupied the next row with his own legal team. Cole Mercer sat farther away, under the supervision of federal officers. He avoided looking toward Maya. United States District Judge Helen Crawford entered shortly after 9 in the morning. She was 63, had served on the federal bench for more than a decade, and had already warned both sides that the hearing would focus on evidence rather than public reputation. The hearing concerned the preservation of records, possible obstruction of justice, and whether the Hawthorne Airport Police Department required immediate federal oversight while the criminal investigation continued. Elena called Maya as the first witness. Maya took the oath and sat at the witness stand. She stated her name, age, position, and the purpose of her return from Brussels. She explained that she had carried a certified preservation and seizure order because investigators believed electronic communications had been compromised. Elena asked her to describe the moment Mercer stopped her. "He stood between me and the customs exit," Maya said. "He stated that police had received information about a black woman arriving from Europe with a black suitcase. Did he provide a name?" "No." "A flight number?" "No." "Any physical description beyond race and luggage color?" "No." Maya described the canine handler's signal, Mercer's refusal to use the secondary inspection room, and the decision to search her directly in front of the customs gate. She then explained how several customs employees left their lanes, while passengers gathered to watch. "What did you observe while the search was taking place?" Elena asked. "A dark blue suitcase with a silver ribbon was taken through an employee corridor without inspection." "How did you see it?" "In the reflection of the glass wall behind Lieutenant Mercer. I also turned far enough to see the employee door close." "Did you tell him?" "Yes." "What was his response?" "He told me to focus on my own luggage." Elena asked the court clerk to display photographs of the inspection table. The images showed Maya's clothing, medication, work notes, her mother's shoes, and the photograph of her father spread across the metal surface. "What happened when Lieutenant Mercer found the locked case?" Elena asked. "I told him it contained sealed federal material and warned him not to open it." "Did he stop?" "No." "What did he find?" "The order naming his unit, Chief Kessler, Langston Global Logistics, and several categories of evidence connected to the federal investigation." Elena showed the scratched seal to the court. Did Lieutenant Mercer's behavior change after he read the order? Yes. Before he opened it, he treated my questions as evidence that I was suspicious. After he saw my identification and his own name on the order, he called the situation a misunderstanding. Elena finished her direct examination, and Kessler's attorney, Daniel Price, approached the witness stand. Miss Williams, you are a trained federal attorney, correct? Yes. You understood that airport officers were responsible for preventing narcotics from entering the country. I understood their responsibility. I also understood that they needed a lawful basis for a criminal search. Price walked toward the evidence table. You could have told Lieutenant Mercer that you worked for the Department of Justice as soon as he approached you, could you not? I could have, but you chose not to. I asked why I had been stopped. My occupation did not answer that question. Your position might have ended the misunderstanding before your belongings were searched. Maya looked directly at him. The right to lawful treatment does not begin when an officer learns where a person works. Price paused before continuing. You were carrying a federal order that named Lieutenant Mercer and Chief Kessler. You knew the document could have serious consequences for them. Yes. Did you consider allowing the search to continue because you believed their conduct might strengthen the government's case? No. You did not identify yourself. You asked repeated legal questions, and you made sure witnesses were recording. Are you telling this court none of that was deliberate? I stated my name, the time, and that I did not consent after the search had already begun. I did that because I wanted an accurate record. Price looked toward the judge. A record that could later be used against the officers. A record of what the officers chose to do. He changed direction. You have described yourself as calm throughout the incident. Is that accurate? I controlled my voice and kept my hands visible. Because you knew how an emotional reaction might appear on camera. Because I knew an emotional reaction might place me in greater danger. Price stopped near the witness stand. You were surrounded by law enforcement officers in an international airport. What danger did you reasonably believe you faced? Maya took a moment before answering. My father was once stopped while driving his delivery truck. He followed every instruction, and officers still described him as aggressive because he asked why they were searching his vehicle. He taught me that people who already see you as suspicious may interpret fear, anger, confusion, or silence in whatever way supports the decision they have already made. That is not what happened to you. It is why I knew how to respond. Price returned to the table and picked up one of the photographs. You were not physically injured, correct? No. No narcotics were planted in your suitcase. No. You were released the same night. Yes. So the harm you describe is primarily embarrassment. Maya looked at the photograph showing her personal belongings spread across the table. The officers accused me of carrying drugs in front of strangers. They opened my medication, handled my private clothing, damaged a federal case, and used the search to draw attention away from an uninspected suitcase. That was not embarrassment. It was an abuse of authority. Price set down the photograph. You have no personal knowledge of what was inside the blue suitcase. That is correct. You never touched it. No. You saw it only briefly in a reflection. I saw it enter a restricted corridor without being scanned while the officers responsible for the distraction were communicating over their radios. Price turned toward the judge. No further questions. Judge Crawford asked Maya one question before excusing her. Miss Williams, why did you withdraw from the investigation? Because I became a victim and witness. I did not want my role to compromise the process or allow anyone to claim I was using federal authority for personal retaliation. Maya stepped down from the witness stand and returned to the gallery. Kessler remained composed. Langston whispered to his attorney. Mercer continued looking at the table. Without Thomas's records and Leah's testimony, the defense still believed the hearing could be limited to an improper search and a disputed baggage movement. Elena began preparing to introduce the union server records when the courtroom door opened. Leah Bennett entered without her uniform and walked toward the federal prosecutors. Elena met Leah near the counsel table and spoke with her in a low voice. Leah's hands were unsteady, but she did not look toward Mercer or Kessler. Judge Crawford watched the exchange. Miss Brooks, is this witness prepared to testify? Yes, Your Honor. Officer Bennett has agreed to authenticate the recording and answer questions regarding the airport police unit. Kessler's attorney stood. We object to the timing. The defense was informed that Officer Bennett had withdrawn her cooperation. She changed her decision, Elena said. The recording and her identity have been disclosed throughout these proceedings. Judge Crawford looked at Leah. Officer Bennett, do you understand that you are under no obligation to protect any person in this courtroom by withholding the truth? Yes, Your Honor. Do you also understand that testifying falsely could expose you to criminal penalties? I understand. Then take the oath. Leah walked to the witness stand. She stated her full name and confirmed that she had served under Mercer in the Hawthorne Airport Police Department's narcotics unit. Elena began with the earlier searches. Before the night Maya Williams returned from Brussels, had you participated in other searches near the final customs gate? Yes. How were the passengers selected? Mercer usually said we had received intelligence. We were not shown the source. Did you notice anything about the people who were stopped? Leah looked toward the gallery. Most were black women. Several were immigrants traveling alone. Some had limited English. They were usually people Mercer believed would not have anyone waiting nearby who could challenge the officers. Did those searches result in narcotic seizures? Not the ones I witnessed. Then why did you continue participating? Leah took a breath. I believed my supervisors knew more than I did. Later, when I began to doubt that, I was afraid to speak. Mercer said the unit was a family, and that officers who questioned the family could not be trusted. Did you consider your silence neutral? At the time, yes. And now? No. My silence allowed the searches to continue. Elena asked about the night Maya was stopped. Leah explained that Kessler identified Maya over a private radio channel. Before Mercer approached her, no dispatch alert had been announced, and no officer had provided identifying information beyond Maya's race, direction of travel, and suitcase color. Did Chief Kessler explain why he wanted her searched in front of the customs gate? Yes. He wanted customs officers to leave their lanes and focus on her while a blue suitcase moved through the employee corridor. Were officers ordered to turn off their body cameras? Yes. Did you comply? I covered the indicator light, but I left my camera recording. Why? Because I knew the search was not legitimate, and I wanted a record of the order. Elena turned toward the court clerk. The government offers the vendor-preserved body camera file and its audit history. A digital evidence specialist had already confirmed that the recording on the manufacturer's server came directly from Leah's assigned camera. The audit trail showed that the file had been uploaded automatically and had not been edited. It also showed that someone using an administrative account associated with Kessler's office later attempted to mark the file for deletion. Judge Crawford admitted the recording. Kessler's attorney objected again. The audio may contain radio traffic unrelated to the incident, Elena replied. The government will play only the relevant portion. The courtroom became quiet as the recording began. Kessler's voice came through first. Do you see that black girl hurrying toward the customs checkpoint? Mercer answered that he did. Stop her and search her suitcase right in front of the checkpoint. Do we have a tip? We will. Once customs is focused on her, Langston's people will move the blue suitcase through the employee corridor. The recording continued with Mercer asking what would happen if Maya objected. She is traveling alone, and nobody here knows who she is. Kessler said, create enough attention to pull the customs officers away from their lanes. By the time anyone questions the search, the other suitcase will be gone. A later section captured Mercer reporting that customs officers were watching Maya. Kessler responded, move Langston's suitcase now. No one spoke after the audio stopped. Kessler remained seated, but the color had left his face. Victor Langston leaned toward his lawyer, who raised one hand to stop him from speaking. Judge Crawford looked at Kessler's counsel. Do you still contend that Lieutenant Mercer acted independently? The attorney stood slowly. Chief Kessler maintains that the recording lacks the broader operational context. The judge's expression did not change. A uniform does not turn prejudice into police procedure, and a report written after an incident does not turn a lie into lawful cause. Elena then introduced the records recovered from the Union server. A federal analyst explained that Thomas Green had preserved baggage routing data, employee access times, vehicle assignments, and incident reports covering 16 public searches. The records established the same sequence on each occasion. A black woman was stopped near the customs exit. Officers gathered around the search. Customs personnel left nearby lanes. A marked suitcase entered an employee corridor, and a Langston vehicle departed within minutes. In most cases, the alleged tip was entered only after the search had begun. Payments from the Hawthorne Public Safety Foundation followed several of those operations. Langston Global Logistics was the foundation's largest donor, and Mercer's unit received bonuses described as rewards for increased interdiction activity. Kessler's attorney tried to separate the donations from the baggage movements. There is no proof that Chief Kessler knew what any suitcase contained. Elena faced the judge. The evidence shows he ordered officers to create false narcotics searches so Langston's luggage could avoid inspection. Whether each shipment contained drugs, money, or other contraband does not change the obstruction, falsification, and abuse of authority already demonstrated. Mercer looked from Kessler to the federal prosecutors. His attorney whispered to him, but Mercer shook his head. He raised one hand. "Your Honor, I need to speak with my lawyer and the government." Kessler turned toward him. "Cole, do not say anything." Mercer looked at the man who had commanded him for years. "You told your attorneys I acted alone." Kessler did not answer. Mercer's attorney requested a brief recess. Judge Crawford granted 20 minutes. During the recess, Mercer agreed to provide a full statement in exchange for consideration at sentencing, not immunity. When court resumed, Elena summarized the agreement before Mercer took the stand. He admitted that the narcotics tips were fabricated. Canine handlers were directed to create false alerts, and passengers were selected because officers believed the public would accept accusations against them without demanding proof. He confirmed that Langston paid Kessler through the Public Safety Foundation and related consulting accounts. The blue suitcase moved on the night Maya returned contained synthetic narcotics, undeclared diamonds, cash, and an electronic storage device belonging to the smuggling network. He also confirmed that Kessler knew a traveler identified as M. Williams might be carrying a federal order. Maya Williams served two purposes, Mercer said. If she had the order, we were supposed to take it. If she did not, the search would still move Langston's shipment through. "Why did you believe she would be an easy target?" Elena asked. Mercer looked toward Maya for the first time. "Because she was young, black, and alone. We believed nobody at the checkpoint would question us until it was too late." The admission remained in the courtroom after he finished speaking. On the evidence table, the damaged document case still carried the scratch Mercer had made when he broke the seal. It no longer represented the authority that had protected Maya. It showed how close the same system had come to ignoring everyone who carried no title at all. Judge Helen Crawford returned to the bench after a brief recess and reviewed the evidence entered during the hearing. The courtroom remained quiet as she addressed the attorneys, the officers, and the representatives from Hawthorne Airport. "The evidence presented today establishes more than an improper search," she said. "It shows a coordinated effort to create false narcotics incidents, divert customs personnel, conceal baggage movements, alter official records, and interfere with a federal investigation." She ordered Chief Raymond Kessler suspended from duty and referred his conduct to a federal grand jury. Cole Mercer would remain in custody while prosecutors evaluated his cooperation, but the judge made clear that his testimony would not erase his role in the operation. Victor Langston and several senior employees of Langston Global Logistics were placed under formal investigation for smuggling, bribery, obstruction of justice, and conspiracy to tamper with federal evidence. The company's airport contracts were frozen, and its financial accounts connected to the Hawthorne Public Safety Foundation were ordered preserved. Judge Crawford also placed the Hawthorne Airport Police Department's narcotics unit under immediate federal supervision. The existing unit would be dissolved, and every public search conducted under Mercer's command during the previous 3 years would be reviewed. All officers would be prohibited from turning off body cameras during passenger stops or baggage searches, unless a documented emergency required it. Canine alerts would need independent verification, and any secondary inspection would require a written explanation showing why the traveler had been selected. The judge ordered the airport to compare every future passenger search with activity in the surrounding customs lanes so that no public detention could be used to conceal the movement of other luggage. Thomas Green's employment record would be reopened, and the theft accusation that ended his career would be reviewed by an independent labor examiner. The airport was also required to notify every passenger identified in the recovered files that they had the right to request a formal investigation and seek compensation. Kessler sat without speaking. Mercer kept his eyes on the table. Victor Langston's attorneys were already writing notes and passing documents between them. Judge Crawford looked toward Maya. "Miss Williams, before I conclude this hearing, you may address the court regarding the impact of the search and the broader civil rights concerns raised by the evidence." Maya walked to the evidence table and placed one hand beside the damaged document case. The scratch across the federal seal was still visible. She did not look at the news cameras or the people seated in the gallery. She looked first at Judge Crawford, then at Mercer. "The seal inside this case did not give me my rights," Maya said. "It only made the people violating them afraid of the consequences." She opened the folder containing the names of the women Ruth had identified. Patricia Ellis was returning from Jamaica after caring for her mother. Angela Reed was bringing gifts home to her grandchildren. Another woman had served in the military. Another was returning from her husband's funeral. They were stopped in the same place, accused in the same way, and searched, while other luggage moved through an unguarded corridor. Maya looked toward Kessler. None of them had a federal officer waiting on the other side of the gate. None of them carried a court order bearing the names of the men searching them. Their rights were not smaller than mine. She picked up the photograph of her father that had been placed in evidence with the other items from her suitcase. "My father was once stopped beside his delivery truck and searched because he matched a vague description. He followed every instruction. Nothing illegal was found, but the report still described him as difficult because he asked why he had been stopped." Maya returned the photograph to the table. "What happened to me mattered before Lieutenant Mercer opened this case. It mattered when he chose me because I was black, young, and alone. It mattered when he displayed my private belongings in front of strangers and treated my questions as evidence of guilt." Mercer lowered his head. "The most disturbing part was not that they did not know who I was," Maya continued. "It was that they believed that if I were only an ordinary black woman, they could empty my life onto a metal table and call it police work." She paused before giving her final statement. "A system that recognizes injustice only when the victim has power is not justice. It is fear of consequences wearing a uniform." Judge Crawford allowed the silence to continue before formally ending the hearing. During the following months, the federal investigation expanded. Kessler, Mercer, Langston, and several contractors were indicted. Mercer pleaded guilty to reduced charges in exchange for continued cooperation, but he still faced prison and the permanent loss of his law enforcement career. Leah Bennett received federal whistleblower protection. She was not presented as a hero. An independent review examined the earlier searches in which she had remained silent, and she accepted responsibility for failing to act sooner. Thomas Green was cleared of the theft accusation. His employment record was corrected, and he received the retirement benefits he had lost. He chose not to return to full-time airport work, but he agreed to advise the new Employee Oversight Board. 1 year later, Hawthorne Airport completed the first stage of its customs reforms. The public inspection table near the final gate was removed. Secondary searches were conducted in monitored rooms with independent supervisors, and all baggage movements through employee corridors were automatically compared with passenger inspection records. Near the customs exit, the airport installed a glass display called Clear Passage. A short sentence appeared beneath its name. "Every traveler deserves dignity before their identity is known." Thomas attended the dedication with several former baggage workers. He remained near the back rather than joining the officials on stage. Leah approached him after the ceremony. She was dressed in ordinary clothes and no longer worked in Mercer's former unit. "I should have spoken sooner," she said. "I am sorry." Thomas studied her before answering. "Then do not be silent next time." Several months later, Maya returned to Hawthorne after another overseas assignment. She carried the same black suitcase and the repaired document case. She had asked that the scratch across the seal remain untouched. An airport employee recognized her and offered to take her through an expedited line. "Thank you, but I will stay here," Maya said. She waited with the other passengers and moved forward when it was her turn. The customs officer checked her passport reviewed her declaration, and returned the documents with both hands. "Welcome home, Miss Williams." No one asked her profession. No one demanded that she prove her importance. No one touched her luggage without a lawful reason. Maya walked through the same gate where Kessler had once ordered Mercer to stop her. This time, she crossed it not because a federal seal protected her, but because the people responsible for that checkpoint had finally been required to respect what should have mattered from the beginning. She was a human being, and that had always been enough. This story reminds us that justice should never depend on a person's title, influence, or social position. Every human being deserves dignity, fair treatment, and the protection of the law. Silence may protect wrongdoing for a time, but courage, evidence, and ordinary people who refuse to look away can still bring the truth forward. Thank you for staying with us until the end of this story. We truly appreciate your time and support. Please share your thoughts about the story and the way it was told in the comments. Your feedback helps us improve every new episode. If you have a meaningful, inspiring, or unforgettable story that you believe deserves to be heard, please send it to our channel. Your story may become the next one we share with our audience. This video is a work of fiction created with the assistance of artificial intelligence. All characters, events, and situations are not real and do not represent any actual people or true stories. The content is intended for storytelling and emotional illustration only.